First thing is first, mix submission is open. Go to the description, there will be a link to submit your mix. Also, if you haven't heard, Polyscape is coming out with a 3-track EP. First song on that 3-track EP is dropping this Friday, called Dreaming in Pixel. So without further ado, let's get into this mix. Last time I talked about rhythm guitars. The lead guitar is processed in a very similar way as all of the other instruments are. The lead guitar is a track, and then a lead guitar bus, instrument bus, to the 2 bus, to the master bus. This is what it sounds like in isolation. If you downloaded the stems, you would have noticed that it is not a DI guitar, it is an affected guitar. It's a mono affected guitar that has some delay and some reverb. And dude, there's not much to this lead guitar. All I'm doing is filtering on this EQ right before it hits the compressor. And after that, I'm using side widener. And I only really like to use this plugin on the end of a lead guitar or on the end of a vocal track chain. All it's really supposed to do is kind of spread the signal so that the lead guitar can be a little recessed, but still very present and audible. So this is what it sounds like in context. That's basically it for lead guitar. Super easy. Let's move on to vocals. I have a few tracks going on, all of these green ones that are highlighted. Let me tell you what they all do first. This ST delay is a stereo delay. This X delay is almost like a ping pong delay, a rhythmic delay that is tempo mapped to the BPM of the song. So if I want to have the kind of effect that goes like, hey, 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 that was kind of lame. That's how I would achieve it with this X delay. The vocal dub are doubles of certain lines that the main vocal does. Vocal main is exactly what it sounds like. It's the main vocal bus with the main performance. Scream M to S tracks, basically a way to get my main vocal performance, which is mono, and turn it to stereo so that I can have side left and right overdubs of the main vocal. And the side vox bus refers to any sort of vocals that are happening on left and right, but not on center. So let's look at the plugin chain of the vocal main bus.
Through every crack and crevice seams, blackness washing over the window, painting the valleys in between, reaping down the alleyways, consuming every tree. So the swarms of nothingness short out to my soul.
So basically the way that this is going is I get my raw vocal and I send it to that CLA 76. There's a really fast release and a really high ratio. I like to squash the shit out of my growled vocals. That then goes to a CLA 2A, and they're all supposed to address and affect different parts of the envelope of a signal. At this stage, I also have a parallel send going to my stereo delay bus. Let's listen to the vocal dub. This is a double-tracked part by Pat. Here's what it sounds stacked along with the main.
Rage just prolongs the end, inevitably it's dry.
Has the exact same plugins and chain as the vocals without the gem EQ. Now let's look at that Scream M to S track. This third vocal track is not a third vocal take. Keep that in mind. Basically all I'm doing first is this EQ on the left hand side with a high pass filter and ducking a lot of that boxy low mids. Then that goes into an Aquavox. Aquavox is supposed to be like an Avalon 737, one of these guys. To my ear, it kind of sounds like it hypes the high end a little bit, but in a pleasant way, not in a piercing way. It's perfect for vocals. This plugin is meant for vocals. The drive is all the way down because I don't want this character of distortion. So instead, I introduced the Sans amp. The Sans amp is what's doing the bulk of my distortion. You can hear it here. And because the Sans amp is really a bass amplifier, it has a pretty knocky high mids, super ringy, super whistly. It's not good for vocals. So I took a lot of that off, that 2K. The last thing I need to say about this track is that there is a send to the parallel X delay bus at this stage. However, this Scream mono to stereo track is not mono to stereo yet. The stereoizing happens down the line, and it happens here at this plugin, the doubler by Waves. A little bit of EQ hyping the high end a little bit. There's a little bit of detuning, and there's a little bit of delay on each side. Now I just want to take a second to show you my delays. This is the stereo delay track in isolation. You see how a simple delay could act like a stereo widener? I picked this trick up from Jordan Valiorodi, and this is the X delay track. Now this is the signal chain of the vocal master bus. This is the bus that gets sent to the 2 bus.
No legend could foresee the planet was forsaken. Not even a memory. Free lights bended.
So the first thing on this chain is the C4. The C4, it kind of adds like a smiley face shape, kind of cuts those honky mids, and I think makes the vocal sound more pristine. That then goes into a vocal rider. The vocal rider is cool because it's kind of like an automation, kind of like a compressor, except way more transparent. It's perfect for the final stage of dynamic controls on my vocals. Does not introduce any coloration and kind of just make sure that the vocals are pinned down. Now this de-esser, I don't always de-ess my signal because I feel like if I EQ it correctly, then I don't need to worry about the S's all that much. But because I'm stacking 3 takes together that sometimes compile of the exact same waveform, you get these weird artifacts that happen, and I found that the de-esser addresses them better than anything else that I had in here. I had like a multi-band compressor I was trying out, but the de-esser seems to do it. That de-esser then gets sent to side widener. Pro trick also about side widening, if you find that your vocal is too plosive or too harsh, using a side widener or a stereo imager can actually soften a vocal performance and take away that harshness. So it can save you a little bit of EQ if you want to use it like in the end. That then gets sent to this Slate Digital Virtual Mix Rack, which has, I hope you recognize, the virtual channel that I've been using on all of my master buses. And before that, a custom series equalizer, which is really just there to take away a little bit more harshness that was coming in at 2K after I did the stereo imaging.
Where does it come from? How can it be sung?
Cool, now let's move on to what I would call sound design. Now, sound design are sound effects that have nothing musical about them in isolation, but that you can use in music in order to create setting or to enhance transitions. They're basically just sound effects that are not instruments. The first thing I want to show you is it's a bass drop put in reverse that leads to another bass drop. This is what it sounds like by itself. And this is where I used it. You see how like it tickles the low end just a little bit right when the silence hits? Here's another fun transition. It's a swoosh going to a bass drop. This is what the swoosh sounds like by itself. And then it goes into the bass drop. And this is what it sounds like in context. I use that a lot, and I pair it with different bass drops depending on what's happening sonically with the rest of the mix. So on this section that I'm about to show you, I use a shorter bass drop that's tuned higher so that it kind of fills out the low mids as opposed to the sub bass. Now here's another transition. This is probably the last sample I need to show you. This is a reverse snare hit. It's a snare hit with reverb affected on it. This is what it originally sounded like. And this is what it sounds like now. Pair that with the swoosh, which has a little bit of a decay. And add a bass drop. So fun to do, especially when you're done with the mix and you kind of just feel like it needs a little bit more to get to the edge. This is what it sounds like in context. If you don't have any sound effects, but you don't have money to buy sound effects from like Splice or stuff like this, go to freesound.org. I found out about that website ever since I was in high school. Ever since then, I've used it for anything that is not music related that I need sound effects for. It's freaking awesome. I'm really excited to see what you guys do with this. Thanks so much for watching this video. You guys have a great day.